What is up, everyone? So today I'm going to be ranking all the Hisuian Pokemon in their Monotype tier on their respective types. So today I'm only going to be doing the fully evolved Pokemon unless I think the lesser evolved Pokemon is good for some reason. So with that out of the way, I'm going to be ranking them in good on both types, good on one type, niche, or otherwise bad. So let's jump right into it. And first off, we do have Hisuian Arcanine. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I think Hisuian Arcanine is good on both types. So we have Pokemon Showdown open over here. I'm going to discuss my thoughts on this. Just looking immediately, its stats are okay, pretty good. 115 attack is not bad. 90 base speed is decent, and it has semi-decent bulk. Ability wise, Intimidate's pretty nice. Personally, I don't care much for Flash Fire. Maybe if you really want to try soak up a Will-O-Wisp and increase your Flare Blitz damage, but I think Rockhead is definitely its best ability, and the reason for that is it has Flare Blitz, which you can spam, and Head Smash. So these are both ordinarily recoil moves. 120 base stab is pretty incredible considering it can also burn, and if you want to go absolutely crazy, we have 150 base stab. Usually has half recoil thanks to Rockhead. It will have no recoil, so you can pretty much spam this. It is insanely powerful, especially against Araquanid, which can otherwise give you both types quite a lot of trouble if you're playing in the Nat decks. It's very prevalent on Monobug at the moment, so Head Smash is quite nice. Now, it is a bit shaky accuracy-wise. That's fine. I think it's worth it considering how strong this is. Especially with the Choice Band, this thing hits like obscene levels of power, and there's very little not going to be when I KO by this. If you're on fire as well, or even rock, and you're worried about water types, it does get Wild Charge. Pretty nice. Only base 90, not that strong, but it's super effective. OHKOs things like Pelipper without having to be afraid of missing the Wild Head Smash. So it's kind of nice to have that. Again, no recoil thanks to Rockhead. And other than that, I like Close Combat or Extreme Speed if you need some priority on the team. So definitely a pretty good Pokemon, and I think deserving here in the highest tier. Next up we have Hisuian Electrode. I'm on the fence about Hisuian Electrode. When it was first announced, I was kind of like, oh, that's exciting, another grass electric type Pokemon that's going to be good on both its types. On grass, it's good against flying types. On electric, it's good against ground types. But it's really niche, I think. It's okay. It's good enough typing, I suppose, but I don't think you'll necessarily always get what you want from it. I would say you're better off using Rotom most of the time. It's just too weak in my opinion. 80 base special attack is not going to be doing enough. Its speed is absurd. Its speed is like fantastic. I think only outsped by maybe Ninjaska and Deoxys Speed or Regieleki, so very few things outspeed this thing. It's very fast, but I just don't think it has a special attack to work with it. You could easily run a modest spec set because it's fast enough to do that, but even still, it's not even hitting 450 special attack. Like, it's not very good. Some Pokemon hit that without specs. Moveset wise, it's extremely limited. Chloroblast is nice. It's 150 base grass stab, so it's going to absolutely obliterate ground types. Unfortunately, as you can see here, it loses half its HP in doing so, so it can only realistically be used twice, maybe 3 times if there's no entry hazards on the field before this thing knocks itself out, which isn't great. It's good to absolutely blast a single Pokemon that's annoying you, but overall kind of niche. And electric wise, its stab is... let me just put that there. Electric wise, its stab is not the most reliable. I mean, Thunder is not very good. The next strongest is Discharge, which is only 80 base. It's okay. Not going to be strong enough to destroy a lot of the flying types. And as well as that, flying has plenty of options to deal with electric types in general. So I think Electrode is unfortunately very niche. I don't think it's quite bad, but I think it's niche. Speaking of niche, we have Hisuian Typhlosion, and it's kind of a shame. I think its design's quite cool, but you're competing with a lot of ghost flyer types here. If we look, we have Ceruledge and Skeledirge in Generation 9. In that decks, we also have Chandelure, Blacephalon, and Marowak. Now, I think Blacephalon is definitely the best of those. I think it kind of outclasses Typhlosion and what it wants to do. And Skeledirge and Ceruledge are very different kind of ghost fire type Pokemon, but still very good fire ghost type Pokemon. Weak armor, Ceruledge can set up and sweep games with Bitter Blade, while Skeledirge is quite bulky and a good wall, which is kind of hard to come by on Ghost and very nice on Fire because it gets the Sun Booster Torch Song, which makes it very hard to kill and very easy to snowball with. So Typhlosion kind of just doesn't have that. It has Infernal Parade as its like signature move. 30% chance to burn, double damage with burn, so it's kind of like a slightly better Hex, but not even entirely because Hex is that tiny bit stronger, though I think the burn chance is nice on that 30%, as we know from Scald is really good. You can also run Eruption if you really want, but Eruption has no place on a fire type. There's plenty of fire types who can run that, and on ghost types it's kind of niche. I think it's pretty much outclassed. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I think it can be used, but I definitely think it's outclassed. So these guys are Ubers. I'm not going to be ranking those. We have Samurott. I think Samurott is good on both types, and pretty much only because it has sharpness boosted by its signature move Ceaseless Edge. So Ceaseless Edge sets up a layer of spikes whenever you use it. It is also boosted by stab and also boosted by sharpness, I believe. So kind of crazy. Sharpness is such a good ability, and for that reason alone, other than that, its stats are not great. Its move pool is okay. Ability is good with sharpness because you get things like Aqua Cutter as well if you really want. I think it gets Sacred Sword, which is nice. So definitely, I don't know if it gets Leaf Blade. No, it doesn't get Leaf Blade, but definitely gets good use of its ability sharpness. But I think Ceaseless Edge alone, setting up larger spikes while also damaging with Dark, which is a good offensive type, is very, very nice. And I think that alone gets it good. Next up we have Lilligant. I was torn on Lilligant. I was gonna put it in niche. I don't know if I put it in niche or good on one type. I don't think it's amazing on fighting. I mean, it brings you grass coverage and like things like Ice Spinner, but plenty of fighting types get stuff like that. So, and the close combat spam is not that necessary on fighting. I don't think it's particularly amazing on it. On grass, it can be incredible and sweep like crazy, but it's also a little niche, and let me explain why. In theory, this thing's amazing because it gets Victory Dance, which is basically a physical version of Cover Dance or Dragon Dance and Bulk Up combined, so it increases your attack, defense, and speed. Pretty fantastic move. Speed and attack-wise, 105 base is not bad. That's pretty good, especially after a boost. This thing is going to outspeed a lot. But you might be thinking, its attack's only okay, 309 is not great, but it can be boosted further by Hustle. So this is already +1 stage by default. That should be 31. So it's 309. It hits over 450 attack by default with Hustle, and that's before it boosts itself with Victory Dance, which is very nice. You can spam things like Close Combat, Leaf Blade, Ice Spinner for Dragons, which is really good. Now the problem is this is good about 80% of the time. You can run Wide Lens to make that 88% of the time, but in general, reliability is so important in Pokemon. So it's kind of niche. I think it's good. But bordering niche in my opinion. If you're willing to take the risk, and I think Grass can take that risk, but at the same time, Grass also just has access to Breloom, which is free Mach Punch priority, boosted by Technician. You get like Bullet Seed, which is crazy. Now it's slow. Hisuian, Lilligant is faster, but I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I guess it's okay. It can also run Chlorophyll if you really want to fight against the fire matchup, but I think with that you're not going to be strong enough to OHKO most fire types, so just be careful if you want to run Chlorophyll as a niche answer to fire. So next up we have Zoroark. I discussed Zoroark a lot in previous videos when it first came out. I think it is definitely good on both types. Normal Ghost is despicable typing, like really good, brings fantastic immunities where they're needed, and thanks to Illusion you can disguise yourself as another party member. If you are normal, you can disguise yourself as what's that bike dragon thing? Cyclizard. Couldn't remember his name for some reason. You can disguise yourself as Cyclizard lead and actually be Hisuian Zoroark and destroy a lead with like Specs Hyper Voice or Specs Shadow Ball, Bitter Malice, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, all that kind of stuff. Or you can throw a rogue trick in there with Choice Scarf, Choice Specs, or just be a Life Orb, Nasty Plot. There's so much Zoroark can do. Illusion is so good. It gives you immunity to fighting thanks to its Ghost typing, and on Ghost it gives you immunity to normal and fighting types, which is immunity to ghost types, which is fantastic thanks to its normal typing. So just an amazing Pokemon. Borderline busted, but definitely good on both types. Next up we have Braviary. I think Braviary is good on both types. It's kind of a weird Pokemon, but it can focus on either being a bulky wall breaker with sheer force life orb, much like the original one can. However, this one's a special attacker, and a special attack of 112 is pretty good, and it's also bulky with 110 base attack. HP, sorry. With the nice team support both these types have, this can be very strong. Or if you want to go Tinted Lens with Esper Wing, you can. It guarantees increases your speed of stage every time and has high critical hit ratio. With Calm Mind and things like heavy duty boots, I think it's very good. Other than that, you can run maybe Hurricane and Heatwave. It's a pretty good one. In this case, I would run more HP, so when you're boosting your HP quite a lot. Just a generally very strong Pokemon. Tinted Lens is an incredibility, or Sheer Force if you want to be a wall breaker. Just bear in mind, if you're running Sheer Force, Esper Wing does not give you the speed boost. It is boosted by Sheer Force instead, but with Life Orb, that's kind of crazy powerful. So it can be like a pseudo Nidoking in its own right, or it can be a good setup sweeper. I think both types really appreciate this. Now, Psychic is not starving for special attackers, but I think it's so strong that it carves itself a niche all the same, so definitely put this good on both types. Avalugg, I don't think it's bad. I think it's completely outclassed on Ice by base Avalugg. Is base Avalugg in this game? It is, absolutely yes. Especially in Nat decks, I think it's completely outclassed. I think there's no reason to add Rock type to it. It is purely a hindrance. If it was Ice Ground, maybe then we'd be talking. But it's Ice Rock, which I think is one of the worst types in the game, especially for a defensive Juggernaut. Now, on Rock, it's niche. I've used it, and I think it's kind of okay. It can survive a surprising amount of heavy hits just due to its like ridiculous base defense. 184 is despicable, and 95 HP is pretty good too. Gets access to Recover, Iron Defense, Body Press. It gets Rocks, which is slightly nicer than base Avalugg, but I don't think you can really afford to run it because you could run Rapid Spin. This one is completely walled out by Ghost, however, so you'd want to have something like Tyranitar on your team to do with that. And of course, you can run Sturdy. It's niche. It has a role, although I think it's niche. Goodra, definitely good on both types. This is something that both Steel and Dragon really, really wanted, in my opinion. Steel Dragon is a pretty good typing. It gives you neutrality to fire, which Steel loves, and on Dragon, it gives neutrality to ice, which of course Dragon loves. Also gives neutrality to water and electric, thanks to its Dragon typing, which Steel kind of appreciates, because they're two of the only types that kind of really can give a Steel a lot of trouble. Now, still weak to fighting, that's fine. Steel has so much balance that it can deal with it. It has Sap Sipper. Personally, I would never run Sap Sipper unless you really hate like Leech Seed spam. Shell Armor is pretty good, especially with the Urshifus running around. But most importantly, I think Gooey, lowering the opponent's speed of stage when it makes a move, is really, really good. Makes contact, I mean. It's really, really good. So let me explain what it is. It's fantastic team support. This thing is quite slow. It doesn't need to be fast. It has passive team support with Gooey, so if it has to swap out, the potential Pokemon that it's swapped out against is slower and can potentially be revenge killed. On Steel, that's nice because Steel is kind of a slow type. On Dragon, it's nice because Dragon is incredibly powerful and really likes heavy hitting choice locked users. So to lower a speed, maybe you have a Choice Scarfer and a Choice Band can revenge kill is quite nice. Stat spread wise, it's pretty nice across the board. 150 special defense is insane. I personally like to boost that the full way and use something like Assault Vest to give this thing crazy special defense, well over 600. Both Dragon and Steel have Healing Wish support in Latias and Jirachi, so if you really want this thing to be alive forever, you can run it alongside Healing Wish. Moveset wise, it's pretty good. I think Acid Armor is just the exact same as its signature ability. I can't remember what it's called. It was kind of a weird one. However, it does have good move pool. You have access to Draco Meteor. You have access to Counter if you really want. Chilling Water if you're worried about attack stats. Fire Blast, Fire Flamethrower, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam. If you want to go physical, Ice Spinner, Iron Head, Outrage, even Sludge Bomb, Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave. This thing is just crazy good. It has a huge move pool, amazing typing. Definitely much, much appreciated on both its types. Next up we have Decidueye. I was thinking Decidueye is good on one type. Now, the reason I think it's not great on grass, I just feel like Breloom does a lot of what it does, but slightly better. It has access to Spore, has the same speed tier, much the same attack stat, especially after Technician. However, on fighting, this thing does have access to Scrappy, which is really good because you can hit things with, I think it's triple arrows, high crit, 50% chance to lower defense, and a 30% chance to flinch. Kind of a stupid move, especially because nothing will have an immunity thanks to Scrappy. Now, it's not the fastest. This can be patched up a bit with Trailblaze. With Stab Trailblaze, it's okay, not amazing, but then you can kind of spam triple arrows a bunch and it can be quite nice. For that reason, I actually think it's pretty good on fighting. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't bring much to fighting's hard matchups like Flying, Psychic, or Fairy, but I think to a lot of neutral matchups, it's pretty nice, and generally is okay. Has Brave Bird too, pretty good against opposing fighting types. Has Knockoff, pretty nice. Just a decent enough move pool. Your Shadow Sneak if or Shadow Claw if you, or Sucker Punch if you really want to deal with like Psychic types or Ghost types. Not necessarily going to KO them, but all nice all the same. Next up we have Weirdeer. I'm tempted to put Weirdeer in bad. I think just for its typing alone, Psychic Normal, it gives it a niche. Psychic Normal, it's not a saturated market by any stretch of the imagination, but there are better Psychic Normal types in my opinion, Meloetta being the best of them. But I think Farafrig is even slightly better than Weirdeer. Indeedee definitely better, sets up Psychic Terrain. So why you want this for an Psychic type, the normal type gives you immunity to Ghost, which is pretty good, and on normal typing it gives you a neutrality to fighting, Now it does have Intimidate if you really want to try and beat those fighting types. I still think it's niche, and I think you're better off using things like Zoroark, but it can be used. You can also use Psy Shield Bash to increase your defensive stage. Now unfortunately this can miss, which I think makes it kinda sucky. If this was 100% accurate, maybe with Intimidate I could see a niche on this or more of a niche, or potentially good on one type, on normal, but I still think it's too niche for what it is. Cleaver. Honestly, I think Cleaver is the best new Hisuian Pokemon. I think this thing is insanely good. Looking at its stats, it doesn't look that impressive. You think like, okay, it's like a slightly fast, pretty strong rock bug type. However, it also gets access to the busted sharpness, and on top of that gets access to, was it Stone Axe? Yeah, Stone Axe. So this sets Stealth Rocks on the side of the field, while also being boosted by sharpness, while also being boosted by stab. I don't think I have to go into the rest of what Cleaver does. I think this alone makes Cleaver amazing on both his types. Personally, I like to run Scarf Cleaver, and you really won't need much moves besides Stone Axe because it's just such a great move. Applying Stealth Rocks and offensive pressure is incredible. On Bug, Bug really likes that because it's good against fire, flying, ice to some extent as well. The Stealth Rocks are quite nice for it. And on Rock, the Bug typing gives it a neutrality to fighting, which actually makes it survive a decent amount of hits. Like, it's not that bulky, but it's bulky enough to usually eat a close combat from unboosted fighting types. You can also hit back with Aerial Ace if you really want. Exorcist is also boosted. There's just so much things Cleaver can do. I think it's fantastic against so many Pokemon. It's really good against Fire and Flying and Bug, which I think is good. And I think Bug currently is quite meta, actually, surprisingly. Next up we have Sneasler. I think Sneasler is good on both. I am kind of afraid Sneasler might get banned due to its ability Dire Claw. There it is. So Dire Claw, for those who don't know, have a 50% chance to paralyze, poison, or sleep the opponent, which is honestly just very, very unhealthy for the meta. On top of that, it has things like Fake Out, so you can run my Fake Out Endure set, which is Lychee Berry. I personally like this one. I've seen as well Normal Gem Fake Out to get that off. Then you get your Endure Unburden boost. Then you can run things like Close Combat. You can run Close Combat even with White Herb. There's so much Sneasler can do, and I think its typing Poison Fighting is pretty good. It's very fast, very strong, base 130 with Unburden. This thing is not going to get outsped by much in the tier. And importantly, it's very good on fighting against the fairies. And on poison, it's good against steel types, which are quite annoying. So overall, Sneasler are definitely very good. Personally, I don't think it should be banned. I think, if anything, they should ban Dire Claw. Unfortunately, that's not how the Smogon Tyrians work. So if anything, this might get fully banned. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it might happen all the same. Next up, we have Enamorus. I'm kind of on the fence about Enamorus. I think it's definitely good. I think this one is good on flying for sure because it can run things like Contrary's Superpower, which is very nice for things like Rock matchup. It's pretty good stat-wise, very fast, good special attack. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't make great use of your high special attack, but if you really want, you can run a mix set with Draining Kiss as well. Its Q-Charm is Contrary is very good. You can run something like this. It's a weird kind of niche set, but Superpower will patch up your attack, become stronger while you're also still nice and strong with Draining Kiss. Now, unfortunately, you can't run things like Calm Mind, because obviously Contrary will lower it, or Agility for that matter. Also has Healing with support on flying, which is quite nice. I think Fairy has plenty of it, but good all the same. You can't run any other boosting moves. You can run Moonblast, quite a strong stab if you want on a flying type. Tailwind if you want to patch up your speed as well. Taunt is quite nice too. Similar for the other Enamorus, the Therian form. It has Overcoat as its only ability. That's okay. Good against Spore, Sand Chip, all that kind of stuff. Personally, what I like to use is Calm Mind, Draining Kiss. I think it gets Stored Power. No, it doesn't get stored. It's Psyshock I used. Psychic. It's quite nice too. And you can run Mystical Fire for steel types. This is the exact set I run my Enamorous. I quite liked it with leftovers. As long as you have defog support, this thing is surprisingly bulky. Actually, I think I ran max defense. And I put 8 points in special attack. So defense-wise it's pretty good, HP-wise it's pretty good. Gonna have great longevity with leftovers and Draining Kiss. Calm Mind patches up its special defense to be quite strong. Now it is very slow, but that's okay. I think flying can afford that, and it's a good, like, different kind of Togekiss. It's not the same as Togekiss, but the typing is pretty good all the same. And so for that reason, I would put both these Enamorai, is that the plural to Enamorous, in good on both types. Next up we have Overquill. Overquill, I think it's good on Poison. I don't love it on Dark so much. Let's look at why. We don't really get access to Swift Swim, so we can pretty much ignore that. We do have access to Intimidate, and it does get access to things like Spikes, I think Toxic Spikes, all that kind of good stuff. Destiny Bond, if you really want to go down that route. Kind of like the original Quillfish. You can run that. Its attack stat is pretty nice too, so it's pretty bulky. Bar Barrage pairs very nicely with a Toxic Spike stacking team, or even just a Toxic Poison team, because it does double power when poisoned, and its special attack stat is pretty nice. Definitely good, has Haze 2, Taunt, Toxic, yeah, it's pretty good. I think its typing Dark Poison is incredible, only weak to ground, which is very nice. Gives you an immunity to Psychic types, and of course you do have things like Crunch to deal with those Psychic types as well. Unfortunately no Sucker Punch or Defog like Skuntank has, but I think Mach Alola has been nerfed so bad this generation that I could see Overquill becoming the new Poison Dark staple. And Dark, I think it's a bit niche. I know it has like neutrality to things like Fairy, but it's just not especially defensive enough to eat that quite nicely. I'm actually not sure if Quillfish is the one I didn't try yet. You could, I suppose, use EVO like Quillfish. Its defenses are okay, and it can be used as another defensive Pokemon on the already good defensive Poison type. You get Intimidated as well, so like that's okay with EVO Light, maybe not amazing, but you can of course still Spike Stack, Toxic Spikes, all that kind of good stuff if you really want to. I'll probably put Quillfish on Niche and Overquill on good and one type on Poison. Definitely worthwhile additions, but I don't think they're incredibly amazing altogether. Next up we have Basculegion. I'm kind of on the fence about Basculegion. I think the two I would actually separate. So the female Basculegion has higher special attack, lower attack, and the male Basculegion has higher attack, lower special attack. Personally, I think I would put male Basculegion as good on water alone. I don't think it has as much of a niche on Ghost. You can run like Adaptability or even Mold Breaker if you really want. Wave Crash is very strong, but I don't think it's amazing outside of Rain, and for that reason I think I'd put Basculegion male good on one type, because I think it's a good Rain Sweeper. Personally, I actually think it's worse than Barraskewda. If you're going to go for a Rain Sweeper, I want higher attack, higher speed, just go crazy. This thing is slightly weaker, slightly slower. I prefer Barraskewda with Band. That said, this gets Wave Crash, which is quite nice if you're okay with the recoil, and Swift Swim, or you can just fake out and go Adaptability, or even Mold Breaker on water is pretty good too, because you can hit things like good Sargastrodon on ground teams, which can otherwise eat your water types and wall you out. So definitely has quite a strong niche on water, not so much on Ghost. Now I disagree, I'd say the other way around slightly on female Basculegion, and the reason for that is I think its water move pool is slightly more spammable on the special side. You can go for Hydro Pump or Surf, I think, if you want slightly more reliability with slightly weaker. However, if you're okay to use like Adaptability, Hydro Pump with Specs, even though this thing doesn't have the most special attack, it's still gonna hurt very badly. Coming off over 450 special attack, Adaptability boosted Hydro Pump is really going to hit hard. Ghost Stab wise, you also get Shadow Ball. Now of course Last Respect is banned, otherwise I think this thing would be just completely busted and banned outright. So Last Respect is banned. So you get Shadow Ball, and then other than that you can run some other just special attack coverage like Ice Beam, which is good for dragons. Not the best Pokemon in the world, but I think it has a solid niche on both its types all the same, and for that reason I think I'll put female here in good on both types. I don't think there's much to be said about Ursaluna. It is honestly almost in its own tier. Maybe not quite a Monotype. I think it's slightly harder to use in Monotype, but it's still very, very, very strong. So for those who don't know what Ursaluna does, it is a stupidly strong bear. It has 140 base attack. It got the nickname Cocaine Bear for a reason, with very high HP as well, base 130, base 140 attack. Now, you're probably thinking, that's pretty strong, base 140 is nice, but it gets better than that. It gets boosted by Guts. It was actually 1.5 times stronger, hitting over 600 attack in neutral state without boosts. If you put a Flame Orb on this, yeah, this thing is crazy powerful. It gets Facade as well, which is very nice. So Facade is actually going to double in power to 140 base with stab, so it's 210 base coming off over 600 attack. That is as ridiculous as it sounds. But you might be thinking, oh, okay, but it might get walled out by steel types. Well, what if I told you it's also ground type and gets Earthquake, or Drain Punch, or Crunch for ghosts? And it doesn't stop there. It also gets Swords Dance. Now, this thing's speed is absolutely pitiful. However, on normal, you can actually quite reliably run this on Trick Room team. If you play Nat decks, I've seen Trick Room or Dino with Healing Wish to fully heal this thing. If you are on Generation 9, I think is Porygon League on Generation 9? Nope. Okay, well, on Nat decks, this thing can be used with Porygon 2, Trick Room Teleport, go into Ursaluna. Suddenly this thing outspeeds everything and gets like 3 free KOs pretty much off the bat. So on ground, I think this thing is somewhat more niche because it doesn't have the team support that it would have on normal. Again, normal also has Cyclizard, so you can shed talent this thing if you really want. Ground does not have any good Trick Roomers. It actually does have a Trick Roomer in Toadscruel, which is kind of interesting. However, it doesn't work very nicely because it doesn't have any pivoting options. It doesn't have like teleport, parting shot, or anything like that. If it did, I could definitely see Toadscruel being an interesting niche for Ursaluna. But speaking of Toadscruel, it can also get Reflect, Light Screen support with Light Clay, and Spore support. If you really want to go down that route to get Ursaluna up, you can do that too. It's a bit harder to get working on ground, but all the same, this thing is so unbelievably powerful that I think even if it comes in and trades for one Pokemon, it's already found its niche right there. So that is kind of my thoughts. I honestly don't think there's any bad Pokemon that aren't not fully evolved or are banned to Ubers like these two guys. I think they all at least have a small niche. If I'd say something's bad, it would be these 3 guys are probably the worst. Maybe these 2 are the worst. But he still has, yeah, they're the worst. But still, I think they have a niche, all the same. So let me know in the comments down below, what are your thoughts on the Hisuian forms? Did I say anything completely outrageously wrong? I have tried these all. These are all tested in battles over the last week or so. So that's where I'm basing all my opinions off. But if you think I'm completely out of line saying, like, Ursaluna is actually only niche, let me know in the comments down below. I'm happy to have a civilized discussion on your thoughts. And with that, thank you so much for the support. I'll see you in the next video, everyone. Take care and have a great day.